Bucknutters, welcome into the Morning Five on Monday, July 14th, 2014. I am Dave Biddle, and I'm joined by the Dean of Ohio State football recruiting, Bill Kurelic. Bill, since we last had a show, linebacker Jerome Baker from Cleveland Benedictine announced his decision. He committed to the Florida Gators on Friday. You were there covering the announcement. What are the chances Ohio State will get back in the running for Baker before it's all said and done?
Well, I think it all centers around what happens at Florida. I think Jerome is very solidly committed right now to Florida, that he's not really having second thoughts. In fact, I spoke to him after his announcement briefly, and he said as much. He's not going to go to Friday Night Lights. He was planning to do that. But having said that, I think that the one key is that if things go awry down in Florida and Will Muschamp is not brought back, I think that would open the gate, open the opportunity for Ohio State to get back in. I'm not saying he absolutely would not end up at Ohio State if that doesn't happen, but I think that's the most likely path for him to flip to Ohio State. I think he's pretty much at peace with his decision now, and his family is too, and as of right now, he's a Gator.
Now, how strange was it that he didn't take any questions at the announcement? As a journalist, that's very interesting to me that it went down that way. You were there covering it. What were your thoughts when he decided to not take any questions?
Well, myself and the other who were there that wanted to talk to him, obviously we were disappointed. We did not know that was going to happen. We were sitting there waiting for the announcement, and when they began things, it was announced, so to speak, that he wasn't going to answer any questions after he made his announcement. And that I have to say, was frustrating because, you go all that way and you hope to do an interview or you hope to do video with Jerome or whatever. But having said that, I think it was probably a situation where, Jerome picked Florida. Had he picked Ohio State, maybe it had been different. But I will say that in Jerome's defense or on his behalf, he has been a very stand-up guy with me. He's always answered, all the questions I've had. He's talked to me basically any time that I've wanted to talk to him. This is the first time anything like that has happened, and Jerome just has been a really great guy as far as I'm concerned, and I think it's just the way that the family and he preferred in this one situation.
Slightly bigger than Baker's announcement on Friday was the news that LeBron James has decided to come home and play for the Cleveland Cavaliers. I know this warms your heart, Bill, being a Cavs fan. Now, it's no secret that LeBron is a big Buckeye fan. We've seen him on the sidelines at Ohio State football games. LeBron even has his own locker and nameplate in Ohio State's basketball locker room. Bill, inform the listeners as to what LeBron can and cannot do to help Ohio State's recruiting efforts. Now, you can't call recruits and stuff like that. We know that. But there seems to be some gray area. What can he do and what can he not do as far as to help Ohio State recruiting?
Well, you're right. He can't just go ahead and call recruits, that type of thing. He can't entice recruits, so to speak. He could not give them tickets to an Ohio State game or buy them food or anything like that in an Ohio State game. Basically, I think the best way to describe it is he can do what any other Ohio State fan can legally do, according to the NCAA. He can go to the games. He can wear his Ohio State garb. He can show that he likes Ohio State. He can do what any Ohio State fan does. It's just that he can't represent Ohio State University and actively recruit for the Buckeyes. And certainly, I think it's a good thing for Ohio State that LeBron is coming back to Ohio. As you mentioned, he likes to go to Ohio State games, whether it be football or basketball. He will show up with an Ohio State hat on or whatever, and obviously, he's arguably the biggest name athlete out there, and him wanting to come back home, as he put it, to Northeast Ohio, I think that's a positive for Ohio State recruiting.
Well, last week I was on a family vacation in Ocean City, Maryland, Bill, what I like to refer to as Big Ten country. Honestly, I was not a big fan of Maryland and Rutgers joining the Big Ten initially, but I've done a 180 on this. Big Ten Network will be on in New York City and Washington, D.C. New York City is the #1 TV market, and the whole point of Jim Delaney adding Maryland and Rutgers was to increase the Big Ten's footprint to the East Coast. I was skeptical that New York and D.C. cable companies would even want Big Ten Network, but Jim Delaney and crew made it happen. What are your thoughts on Maryland and Rutgers joining the conference?
Well, initially, I guess I'd say I've had a little bit of a turn like you. Initially, I was a little bit skeptical, and I've never been for all of the conference changes. When you have a school in the East as part of a conference in the West or in the Big 12 or whatever, it seems odd to me. Now, Maryland and Rutgers doesn't seem quite as odd to me. thought, well, Maryland might be a pretty good fit in the Big Ten. Obviously, they've had a pretty good history of their basketball program, and their football program, I think, has potential. So as things have gone on, I've kind of turned a little bit. I think, as you mentioned, Rutgers, with the outlet on the in the Northeast and all, could be good for the Big Ten. And I guess I'm more along the lines of it's going to be interesting to watch this year. I don't think, to be honest, that this year, the next year, the year after, it's going to make a big impact on football in the Big Ten, because I don't think those programs are on the level of Ohio State. We'll see. And I don't think they're going to be on the level of, say, an Ohio State or Penn State usually is. But I think generally I'm leaning now towards this as a positive for the Big Ten.
Nike's The Opening wrapped up late last week. I want to ask you about a couple guys. First of all, Neville Gallimore, the big defensive tackle, number 14 defensive tackle in the 24/7 Sports Composite. He's out of Canada. He roomed with Jayshon Cornell at The Opening. Where would you put Ohio State's chances right now? Are they the front runner to land Gallimore, or is that not really how you would describe it?
I don't think there really is a front runner right now for Neville Gallimore. I think Ohio State is very much in the running. But I've got a couple really, really good sources in Canada. One that's definitely close to Gallimore, and he even says that he just doesn't know where Gallimore is going to end up. As he puts it, as he tells me, he says the young man is just unpredictable. He could be thinking one school one day and then thinking a completely different school the next day, and you just can't predict where he's going to go. But this source does feel that Ohio State is going to be, in the end, one of Gallimore's finalists or top choices. So I think Ohio State has a very realistic shot at landing him, but I certainly wouldn't call Ohio State, or anyone else for that matter, the favorite to land him at this point.
The other kid I want to ask you about, Will Sunderland, the safety from Oklahoma City, Oklahoma. You did a story on him that subscribers can read. Last night you did a story on the site. Now, you look at the crystal ball predictions, 93% have Sunderland going to Oklahoma. Only 7% have him going to Ohio State. So it sounds like Ohio State is an extreme dark horse here to land Will Sunderland. Is that accurate, that you would say they're a big-time dark horse here?
Yeah, I think they're right now that certainly Oklahoma is the favorite. In fact, he says, Oklahoma State, and Ohio State are his top choices in that order. The one thing that maybe Ohio State has going at this point in their favor, as far as the rankings go, his rankings, Sunderland's rankings, is that even though Ohio State's third right now, he hasn't visited Ohio State yet, and he's been to those other schools. So maybe the visit can change his thinking, and he is going to make a visit. He's going to make an official visit to Ohio State the weekend the Buckeyes play Michigan. So, that's obviously potentially a great time for him to visit and to change his thinking. He has, by the way, been to Ohio. He has family here in Columbus, but when he was here, he wasn't here as a recruit. He was here as a youth. So this will be totally different. He'll be here in Columbus as a recruit. He'll see the Ohio State-Michigan game. He, of course, is going to be shown the red carpet treatment. And putting all that together, it gives Ohio State a chance to make up that ground that they need to make up against Oklahoma and Oklahoma State. So, again, I think, Ohio State is certainly not the favorite, but they're going to get their shot.
Great stuff, Bill. For the listeners out there, keep it locked to Bucknuts for the boarding house later today. We'll have an item on 2017 offensive lineman Josh Myers. We'll also have an item on basketball commit Daniel Giddens and much more, so you won't want to miss that. We'll get that posted before noon. So thanks for joining Bill and I for the Morning Five. Hope everyone has a great day. Take it away, best damn band in the land.